You're watching The Legal Breakdown. So Glenn, we've got a major update on Donald Trump's big $175 million bond that he has to pay in the New York fraud trial. But first, just a quick reminder that we are in the midst of Trump's first criminal trial in Manhattan, and Glenn and I will be doing daily comprehensive coverage of the entire trial. So if you want to follow along for daily legal updates, please make sure to subscribe to both of our channels. Okay, Glenn, things have taken a decidedly worse turn for Donald Trump as far as that $175 million bond that he secured is concerned. What's the news here?
Talk about Donald Trump having a really bad week. New York Attorney General Letitia James has formally opposed the $175 million bond Donald Trump has tried to post, and she has several reasons in what is a lengthy and dense 26-page court filing that just hit. I've tried to skim it quickly for our viewers, and she is asking that the court, that is Judge Merchan, reject the bond. Now remember, Brian, this is a dramatically reduced bond. The New York Court of Appeals did Donald Trump a favor, though, by reducing a bond that he had to post of nearly $500,000 all the way down to $175 million without explanation, without authority. And so even Donald Trump seems to be abusing that privilege, that gift that was bestowed upon him by the New York Court of Appeals. But today, Tish James has said, not so fast. We oppose this bond, and there are several reasons we're urging the court to reject this bond.
Now, what happens if the bond is ultimately rejected? Can asset seizure begin immediately by Tish James, or will the judge give Trump another window, another 10-day window perhaps, to try and secure another bond for $175 million?
Yeah, great question. And I think Tish James tries to answer that question in this new court filing. She says to Judge Engoron, Your Honor, assuming you agree with us and you reject this bond Trump just tried to post, we would ask that he be given no more than 7 additional days to post a legitimate bond, one that is acceptable to basically the courts of New York. And we can talk about why she says this one is not acceptable in New York in a minute. But give him no more than 7 days. And if he can't come up with a legitimate bond, then let the seizures begin.
Okay, and to your earlier point, can you speak about why this bond wasn't acceptable? From Knight Surety, I believe the company was called?
Yeah, I can. Let me just hit some of the highlights that AG James puts in this new court filing. First of all, the bond was posted by something called Knight Specialty Insurance Company, KSIC, and the CEO is somebody who has done business and is something of an associate of Donald Trump's from years past. Yeah. Only the best people. So here is some of what Tish James says. She says, first of all, Knight Specialty Insurance Company is a small insurer that is not authorized to write bonds in New York and thus is not regulated by the New York State Insurance Department and has never before written a surety bond in New York or has never written any surety bond in the prior 2 years in any jurisdiction. Reason 1. Reason 2, they apparently, Knight Specialty Insurance Company, has a surplus of just $138 million. That sounds like a lot until you realize that the industry standard is a company should guarantee a bond for no more than 10% of their total assets. That means even if they were qualified to do business in New York, they shouldn't be putting up a bond for anything more than about $14 million. Of course, they're insuring a $175 million bond for Donald Trump. But wait, there's more reasons to dislike this bond. They say that Donald Trump pledged to Knight Specialty Insurance Company that he has a bank account, specifically a Schwab brokerage account that has, you ready for this? Quote, just over $175 million in cash. Why did I just put up the air quotes around cash? Because Donald Trump said in pleadings, in papers, that, oh yeah, I have a little bit more than $175 million in cash. And he puts the word cash in quotes. I'm not sure why you have to put quotes around the word cash if you actually have cash.
I have an idea as to why you might put the word cash in quotes.
A wild guess, yeah.
Yeah, maybe it has something to do with the fact that he's bullshitting, but that's just me.
Yeah, bullshitting is a legal term. But
yes, exactly.
But so after he goes on to say, I have more than, he doesn't even quantify. I have, well, a little more than $175 million in cash in this Schwab account. He then goes on to tell the Knight Specialty Insurance Company, the one issuing the bond, oh, and if the value in my Schwab account dips below $175 million, I promise to, quote, true up the balance by depositing additional funds in multiple permitted forms, including stocks. Nothing shady about any of those representations as far as I'm concerned, Brian.
Yeah. Glenn, I got to ask.
There's another.
Go ahead. Keep going. I'll ask my question after.
Yeah, there's another couple. Let me just round it out here. So KSIC, the surety company, basically retains 100% of its insurance risk in the Cayman Islands where, quote, this is Tish James' language, lax regulations allow KSIC to, I'm going to paraphrase here, play games. Let me go back to Tish James' language. Quote, a practice New York regulators have dubbed shadow insurance and about which they have sounded the alarm. I think that's reason number 3 to dislike this bond if you're scoring at home. And then finally, Tish James rounds it out with, KSIC is not qualified to act as the surety under this standard because its management, get ready for it, KSIC's management has been found by federal authorities to have operated affiliated companies within KSC's holding company structure in violation of federal law on multiple occasions within the past several years. Other than those 4 or 5 disqualifiers, I think this bond is rock solid.
Yeah, that's right. You couldn't write a more characteristic, like prototypical company that would actually come in and save Donald Trump at the end of this. Glenn, I gotta ask, if Donald Trump has all this money, all this liquid cash or quote unquote cash, whatever that means, why would he seek the help of a bond company who he then has to pay an additional fee to? I think it's like somewhere between 3 and 5%. I mean, that is a massive amount when you're dealing with a sum of $175 million. So if he has the cash liquid right there, why wouldn't he just put his own cash up and not have to pay extra money to some random company?
It makes absolutely no sense because if you're required to put up $175 million in cash, which you could just deposit in the court's escrow account, he did that in the first E. Jean Carroll case. He deposited $5.5 million in cash in the court's escrow account, which let him appeal the first E. Jean Carroll verdict. So if you had $175 million, you just give it to the court and you don't incur the massive fees that are required when you go to a surety company, when you go to a bondsman, because they're going to request a premium in order to issue that bond. So what does that tell me, Brian? It says that he doesn't have $175 million in cash.
Yeah, that must be what those air quotes mean. Okay, Glenn, so what are next steps here? When are we going to get a determination from the judge as to whether Letitia James's motion to disqualify Knight Specialty Insurance Company is granted?
So I have a feeling now that this new filing has been received by the court. Judge Engoron will likely give Donald Trump's lawyers a short amount of time to file its response to Attorney General James' filing. And then I suspect he'll resolve it what we call on the papers, which means he'll probably read Trump's response, if any. He'll make his decision. He'll announce his decision. Again, if I were a betting man and making my $1 bet, I would bet that Judge Engoron will reject this bond, will give Donald Trump 7, maybe 10 days if he's feeling generous to come up with a legitimate bond by a legitimate bondsman who is licensed and permitted to do business in New York, actually has the assets to cover the bond, doesn't send all his business to the Cayman Islands, and has not violated federal law several times over in recent years. And if Trump can come up with that kind of a bond, and I suspect he can't, or he wouldn't have come up with this one, then Attorney General James will begin seizing his properties to satisfy the nearly $500 million money judgment that was entered against him.
Well, we'll obviously follow along with all of this. So for those watching right now, if you want to follow along with this case as well as the ongoing Manhattan criminal trial, please make sure to subscribe. The links to both of our channels are right here on the screen. So please make sure to subscribe to Glenn's channel as well as mine. You can keep up with all of this. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
And I'm Glenn Kirshner.
You're watching The Legal Breakdown.